Ready to rock and roll.
Rocking with rockers, Daniel Rockers.
On June 15,
Yes.
2026. So what I thought we would talk about here is this is a poster that I did in Omaha for the Society of Creativity and Psychology. And what this outlines is those, what I mentioned before, is the three stages. If we look at people's paintings or dreams, but through a psychological perspective, if we look at their paintings, we can see these three stages of healing, like in a depth psychology or Jungian format. So the simplest thing is that in the first phase after trauma, typically people's emotions just overwhelm them.
Yeah.
They're submerged in the emotion, they become the emotion. And that's what this one shows. You can see there are no holes in here in terms of an entire, like there's not an entire dog and there's not an entire person. We just see fragments. And what we get is this kind of angry sensation from that. And that's what that's what essentially characterizes that initial phase. And your dreams in your book reflect that too. I was just looking through those. So those first couple dreams, you're overwhelmed with emotion.
Yeah, so is that what is considered the initial phase?
So I call this the pre-symbolic phase.
Pre-symbolic.
What we're looking to do is go from like three stages essentially. A pre-symbolic, where we're just overwhelmed, to what I call proto-symbolic, which is the in-between phase, and then symbolic phase. Jung talks about symbolism a lot and what constitutes a symbol. And he says that the point of something becoming symbolic is when our conscious mind gets enough distance from the emotion that we can integrate what's coming from there. And that's what these three stages are about. It's about pre-symbolic, proto-symbolic, symbolic, becoming symbolic. And it's a stage of transformation.
And so with the final stage, you said like the integration, is that like, so based on trauma, right? Like mine.
Right.
In my dreams, it was like, in this phase, I got to the point where I have transformed through the trauma and been able to maybe get to this phase where I'm more, I don't know, in touch with life, or back not so affected with my trauma. Like I've come out the other side.
What we're talking about is, in Jungian terms, is ego, which is conscious part of our mind, our identity, our conscious part of our mind, and dealing with this unprocessed emotional material. So ego, affect. And what happens in trauma frequently is that emotional content is so intense that there are times where it just overwhelms us. And that's what is in those first two dreams, right? You're overwhelmed with emotion. You're swamped with it. You're submerged in it. That's what constitutes this first phase. You just get submerged in it. And when ego, conscious mind, gets submerged in it, we're just reactive. That's all we are. And that's what we see in your first two dreams.
Okay, so my a question would be then, in the first two dreams, and refresh my memory, what was the first one?
So the first one is in the gladiator arena.
Yes, so...
It's the horrific and brutal, where they're shocking the animal, they put the animal in a little pit and lock them in and then shock them, torture their heads.
So maybe we can, I can ask questions around my experience with that dream in this first phase.
Yes,
right?
yes, great.
The ego. And so in that dream, I was sitting in the last row of this like old school gladiator, right, stadium, and I had to watch. As much as I wanted to help, I had what felt like two things present to me, two people I knew, but I couldn't see them, and they were telling me I had to watch, and I couldn't do anything about it. And we discussed this, me being like powerless, and
And I think what that represented, when I read through that dream, what I take from it is that represents you are essentially, at that time, this phase, powerless over those emotions, and you have to face those emotions. You can't run away from those emotions, and that's you being held in place. He says, no, there's nothing you could do right now but watch. In other words, you have to become familiar with those emotions. This is that concept of you have to arrive at a place before you can leave it, right? Or you have to feel those emotions in order for you to go beyond those emotions. That's what those are. That's what both that first dream was about, the gladiator arena, and the second dream, which was your dog Matilda and the steamroller.
yes.
Wanting to roll.
So, with my practice and my mindfulness practices, and, one of the things I did after those dreams, when I did awakening, it felt so intense that I laid in bed with it. And I had to sit with the feelings, with the emotions, because I had to give, that STOPP
Right.
in that moment to just kind of say, hey, that was a dream. Because when I woke up, it felt so real.
And that's it right there, Charles. Is it feels so real, and we are not in that moment separate from the emotion.
Mm.
We and the emotion are fused. So we're just fused in it. That's like this picture here. It's just raw emotion, and we're functioning at that level in animal reactivity, right? All we can do is react. We're just reactive at that point. We're swamped, we're submerged. So yeah, that's it. And when you try to come out of it, then like after you wake up, it lingers, and that's a sign of that too. It is you. You are it. That's the initial stages. The initial task in those stages is our system is just trying to discharge some of that energy. And our goal is we have to begin to regulate in some way. And that's why stop things in the stop protocol work so well, because it's all, what I'm remembering is it's based on a lot of physiological stuff.
Yeah.
Right? It's the breathing, it's stop, it's just step by step, it's structured so I can know how to function.
Yeah, sensing the body, trying to be with the emotion, and then connecting the emotion, in my mind, with the story, the narrative flooding in.
Right. And so what you're doing, according to this model then, is you're beginning to establish yourself as separate from the emotion.
Oh.
That's the next phase. So, right on the money. You're establishing, I am this, the emotion is me. And it's this distinction between self and other.
So it brings up the thought, I'm like, me being such a big guy with mindfulness is like, if you cultivate a mindfulness practice, you're able to start this process of like giving that little bit of clarity to be with this stuff, like to start the process of working through.
Yes. Yeah, because and mindfulness is, as I understand it, this is me doing the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a constant bringing our awareness back to, no, this is me doing a thing.
Yeah, just being with whatever's going on in this, like, place of trying not to be non-judgmental or attached to this shit,
Right, right, which is just probably more reactivity.
Yeah.
Just more reactivity, being reactive.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
But I do want to say this. You said that, like, it's this energy that's coming in, and it needs to start being released.
It has to be discharged. It's just too much, right? Plus, it's got to be discharged so I can at least get some sort of space.
Yeah, which reminds me of the importance of talking and processing.
Yes, exactly right.
Right?
Exactly right.
Even though I can do my mindfulness practice, I still have to release through talking about the narratives, talking about the feelings, and then trying to move beyond that.
And that's the value of, like, you and I worked with the dreams. That's the value of the dreams, is because what happens in a dream, it's a message, I interpret it as a message from our unconscious, and it's just giving us a snapshot of here's where you are. This is a snapshot, but it shows in movie form.
Yeah.
So you have the dream.
One intense movie.
Oh, God.
One intense movie.
Those first two dreams are heavy duty. They are heavy duty.
Yeah.
So you have the dream, it lingers with you, but you write it down, and that constitutes a couple of rehearsals already, because you had the dream, then you remember the dream, then you write the dream, then we talk about the dream in therapy, and that's yet another rehearsal. And if you think about recovery in PTSD, a lot of it is about reestablishing yourself. So when you go to do the desensitization stuff, like you went back to the site, and each time you did it, I believe, it became a little easier, probably partly because there's some discharge already, but also because it becomes familiar again. Because, see, some of the thing that we got to do in PTSD is become familiar with the world again. Because we've entered it's the same world externally, but our experience in the world then becomes a lot different, right? Yeah. The world becomes a little more scary. It's a little more fearful. I don't know what's going on. That's the hypervigilance. Yeah. Who could it be? What's it going to be? So, familiarity of doing that, and then that's those rehearsals of the dream, repeating the dream, repeating the dream, repeating the dream. It also helps. I don't know how much is familiarity and how much is just internalizing. Yeah. What's going on?
Well, so I also want to just backtrack a little bit too because of dreams.
Okay.
One of the reasons I like you so much is because we did talk about the nightmares and what dreams are, or what they can teach us, I guess, right? And so maybe you can kind of like explain a little bit about like nightmares, maybe kind of how they form or whatever, or the unconscious mind.
What the point of them are.
Yeah.
My understanding, the way that I'm working from this, is that the dreams are a snapshot of what's going on deep inside. And it's not generally saying you need to do this, you need to do that, but it's just saying, hey, here's a little picture of what's going on.
Well, that energy we've been harboring.
Yes, exactly right. And that's what your nightmares, where you're being, then we go on to the next nightmare where you're being pursued. That's then that energy that's still in there. So in your first two dreams, those are the overwhelmed swamp dreams, and that's that first stage. Our job as conscious individuals then is to begin to separate out self and other. And in this case, what is me and what is this emotional material?
And so is that separation of the ego right there?
That is separation of the ego from the affect. So that's that first stage. And interestingly enough, this is also similar to the first phase that we go through when we're born, and how we have to initially separate from what is me and what is not me, what is me and what is mother. That's that first separation of consciousness. So it's a repeat in terms of trauma. We have to again separate what is me and what is this overwhelming material.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that, my life in that, after the attack, I was so hypervigilant in my daily life, right? And not knowing to release this energy. And so taking that hypervigilant energy to bed. Maybe could do something with the dreams I was having, but at the same time, it makes, when you talk about the separation of the ego, I think of as like me just creating some space from my trauma narratives.
It's another way of saying
Is
it.
that
Same thing. The same thing.
okay?
Trauma narratives involve a belief system, and we acquire those belief systems in that too, which is things like world is dangerous.
Yeah, like I'm getting stabbed in the back right now.
Exactly. At
Yeah.
any moment, anything could happen. So in those moments of trauma, stuff changes inside, just like that. You know, incidentally, a lot of psychology is like, oh, these personality characteristics don't change; they stay stable. We can change a whole lot in just a few moments, right?
Yeah,
You go through a trauma like that, by God, you can change real fast.
yeah,
And we do. And we
Yeah.
do. Suddenly the world is dangerous, or people are dangerous, or people are unpredictable, or I can't stand crowds.
yeah.
All of those things.
Yeah, and you know, I write about that with the belief system, how I was very trusting and sometimes
There you go.
to the point of being naive trusting. And now it's like I don't trust much anymore. And so, and from one incident,
Just
really.
right. From one life-changing incident.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, that was huge.
Definitely.
Life-changing incident.
yeah.
When you think about what you went through, what would you say are your biggest, what is the biggest learning that you got? If you can think of that.
Probably the biggest learning I got from that is, first of all, that I'm stronger than I give myself credit to, right? Because instead of avoiding all the internal things and not wanting to think about it or self-medicating like I used to in the past when I was triggered, it was I had to face, or as I say in my mindfulness practices in the MBSR world is we work with to be with. And so we work with our distressing, unpleasant emotions, thoughts, feelings, pain. We work with those so eventually we can be with it. And so that's the biggest thing I got was being able to be with it, connected with it, you know, connected with my feelings, understanding that in moments of clarity where those feelings and thoughts came from being triggered or things like that.
Right, without it overwhelming you.
Yes.
Without it overwhelming you.
Yes.
So just to go on with this,
Keep going.
so this is, and this relates to what you're just saying, this is a second stage of separation. This picture is a little bit kind of weird and gruesome in a way, but it depicts, these are paintings that the patient did.
Yeah, so why don't you explain really quick on...
Yeah, this was an ICU nurse who had gone through a lot of stuff in COVID but kept going.
Yeah.
Got PTSD from some deaths during COVID, and then got kicked in the head, kicked in the eye, and damaged his eye. And that essentially just zeroed things out. And so he wasn't able to work anymore. It was way too much, and he was overwhelmed. So I started working with him, and I found out he had, before becoming a nurse, was an artist, had studied art, and liked doing art. So in addition to some dreams, he also did paintings. And what I did at the end of the case is I went back and I looked at the paintings, and I picked out 3 of these, beginning, middle, and end, which showed those 3 phases of what we're talking about. So this is that initial pre-symbolic phase where it's just, you're submerged in emotion. It's raw emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Then the separation out, and this is that me and not me. This is where we talked about enantiodromia. This is those 2, which are contrasting poles.
I was going to say,
opposites.
what are you calling me? Okay, so, Andrew, what was that word?
Enantiodromia.
Okay, and what is that?
It is the idea of the way Jung talked about it is if we have an excessively held one-sided position in conscious awareness, automatically in the unconscious, the alternate pole develops, the opposite develops. So for example, an example is like I work with a lot of police and firefighters, right? These are professions which are pretty strongly macho, and heavily involved thought process.
Yes.
And some of their ethos is, or culture is, we don't have emotion. We
Sure.
don't. And it makes sense.
Emotions are weak.
Emotions are weak, and that's the culture there.
There comes the heart attack.
And well, right. So, but what happens is if I hold that position too strongly, which is easy to do, and it makes sense in those professions, right? They've got to make decisions quickly.
Sure.
And when they're in the middle of something, they don't want to be swamped with emotion, which is the opposite pole. So what they do is confine themselves to a lot of thought process. Step by step. Okay, this has happened. What do we do? Okay, first we do this, next we do this, then we do this. You do that, I'll do that, you do that, that kind of thing. Right? Very heavy thought oriented. It's very strongly ingrained. So what happens is the emotion gets pushed down into unconscious. And that's what that opposite pole is. Which works for a while, but then what happens, what tends to happen, or what can happen, is that emotion over time, it isn't inert, it isn't inactive. Every time some event happens, there's more energy, and then at some point, that overwhelms them, like with a panic attack. So this is the firefighter on the burning roof who has a panic attack.
Oh.
Or this is a policeman who's happened to be directing traffic from an accident but gets paralyzed with anxiety. That's being swamped with the emotion.
So the you explaining that, to a point, I think they're just, in my mind, similar to what I was doing, is because of that background, they dissociate, right? Is that a form of dissociation away? Well, not so much maybe, but not, you're living on one side of the spectrum and not acknowledging that there are certain emotions there.
Yes, exactly.
And it's kind of
right.
like you're numbing them, or
exactly right.
Until it gets to the point where that energy needs to be
right, numbing them. And here is, he says, I didn't feel anything for a long time. I was numb to it. In other words, and he talked about that as being the training for the ICU nurses. Another very macho profession. And he says it was beaten out of us. Like, you don't have emotion here. And you just numb yourself to whatever's going on and you crash through and do it.
Yeah, and I don't think that's just like the male macho thing. I think that's maybe workers in that field in general just to maybe unconsciously protect themselves.
Good point. Very good point. It is,
I know I drank a lot,
there you
to
go.
numb, to try to protect myself, I guess.
Very frequent thing I hear from people.
Not knowing that drinking made things worse and had me reenacting traumas. Right? And living this, what definition of insanity? Doing things, same thing over and over, expecting different result.
Yeah, because if you think about it, what happens is the alcohol blocks it for a short time, but then there's that return, and then that return's pretty bad, and so then I need to do it more. Plus, the more that we numb, the less we're able to deal with the stuff when it does show. And then there's that other thing, is if I numb this part, it's not like I can numb some things and not the others. So family begins to notice, and they begin to feel disconnected. That's a kind of a slow downward spiral. So, okay, so where were we? This is the beginning of the separation, what we talked about, my conscious mind from the unconscious stuff, or the conscious mind from the emotion. I guess conscious mind already is.
How does that happen in your mind?
That's you mean how
The
do
separation.
how do we separate, or how do we bring it back together? You know how we bring it back together. That's
Yeah.
what the stop stuff is about, and the
Yeah.
mindfulness stuff is about.
Oh, so okay, so maybe we're still in that separation phase right now. In this
set here, this shows the separation, and you can envision any number of different enantiodromic separations of what goes on here. But generally, the initial one is this. The first stage is to begin to establish what is me and what is not me, at least for purposes of the beginning. So the emotions are still me, but for the conscious mind, we have to be able to get some distance from them and work with them. That's the key.
until we do that, we don't know what is me and what is not me.
Yeah,
just
because you're just fused with
One
it.
big party.
It's one big party. That's a good way of saying it. And it ain't very fun to be in it.
Well, yeah, and so I guess thinking about in my book, my foundation steps, the initial process of cultivating mindfulness allowed me to start having this moment of separating. Like,
Yeah.
maybe I need to leave the party early.
Right. How long do you, when you think back, how long do you think you were in that submerged phase before being able to begin to move on out of that? You tell me what you think, and I'll tell you what I saw, what I remember.
Okay, and and I'm just going to say this for people listening, and if they've read the book and they're new to it, it's like I took in years of mindfulness and mindfulness-based stress reduction practices leading up to the attack, right? So I already had this foundation on how to work with things. So I think, there's no timeline on anything, but I think in just viewing trauma, I think I worked pretty well with it. So I figured it was definitely a year, I think, maybe 6 months to a year before I started
You were pretty fast. You
Yeah.
were pretty fast. And I remember recognizing that, thinking, this guy's moving fast on this stuff. In a good way.
Yeah.
Good way. Some of those lingering things went on, but you were, at the 1 year anniversary, you were back visiting the site, right?
Yes. Even before that, I think I went back 6 months after.
There you go. To me, that's evidence of you're separating from it, and you're beginning to operate with this emotion in a separate way.
Yeah, and part of that was being in the mental health field for 20 years, knowing how to approach things, right? And that's where it goes back to what you asked me before about the main things I learned was I could go to that place 6 months after the attack, right? And be there because I knew if I wanted to get through the trauma, I had to do it. So to a point, I was trauma sensitive myself, but at the same time, I really don't have I had to be trauma sensitive myself, but at the same time, it's like I can't keep on avoiding it. So it's like, I say it's kind of like the pool, like the cold pool. You put your foot in, your toe in, you're like, oh, it's cold, and then you put your leg in, and you might go into your waist, right? And then you find mine was like, I'm just getting the toe wet, and then I'm going to cannonball in because I know that's what I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just, I think, because I had, the background as a practitioner.
Yeah,
Know
that definitely showed because I remember being surprised at how quickly you were going back there. I was like, right on.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah. And so one of the things I did is I went back to the site and I retraced my steps. I did a walking meditation around it so I could just sit with everything. And I took a support person. My wife was with me,
Okay.
right? Even though she was in the car, I had a way to process and talk about it after.
So when did the injury happen? What year was it?
2020.
Okay. And then I think I'm thinking back to the nightmares, the dreams.
Yeah, let's go back.
So then after the Matilda, then I think the next dream was the
Being chased through this.
having that feeling of being pursued. And what happens there is we begin to see a difference in the dreams. Those first two we talked about, the gladiator arena and then the Matilda dream, you were paralyzed and somewhat immobilized.
Yes, frozen. I felt frozen.
You were frozen.
Like I couldn't even move.
And the focus was just on the helplessness and the overwhelming feelings. Then we progress into this dream where things are a little less clear and you're going through the city and you feel like you're being pursued, but you can't see them or you don't see them, right?
No, but there was this urge in the dream or this desire to enjoy myself and to enjoy the city, to enjoy that town I was in. But as much as I wanted to do that, there was this other opposite saying, someone's after you, someone's chasing you. So I couldn't feel like I couldn't stay and get to be a tourist.
So that's the beginning of this separation phase, because there's then the predator-prey motif often shows up then. I'm separate, but that thing has got the power, and it's coming after me.
Exactly.
So,
Markers.
you're
Right on.
You're solid in that phase. And then where you go next, I think, is the one. Oh, the next one then is in your 3 or 4 story residence, and you're talking with a few friends, and somebody says, "Hey, somebody just got in the elevator, and they've got a knife, and they're going to kill somebody." Do you remember that one?
Yes.
So that one then. Now you're not being pursued where something's got the power over you. Now you're on it, right? So now the roles have reversed and you're getting your power.
Yeah.
So that's a very beautiful transformation, and that lets you know you're on the path.
Yeah, and I will share, in that dream, I felt like I had so much juice. Like, I went up those flight of stairs, to beat him up there, and it felt like I was just like gliding.
You said it was like Flash. You were like,
yeah.
This is so great. You were, and what'd you say? You told other people to come on, but they couldn't keep up with you.
I couldn't keep up. I was ready to do something.
And then, did you see the person in the elevator then? Was it one of those like bars?
Yeah, it was bars like the old,
So you could see through the cage.
Yeah, and he had his arms crossed with 2 knives like this. And his head was down, and it was like a black cloak.
You were ready to go.
I was ready.
You were ready for him.
And part of that, I was doing the martial arts too.
Is that when you were doing the knife fighting?
I think so. And so part of that might have been where I started doing this stuff, and it started building this confidence, Yeah. And one of the reasons I did the martial arts was to get this confidence, like I could defend myself in my PTSD mode, like, oh, I might be attacked at any moment. Well, hey, now I have some skills and a little bit of.
It's overcome. You had to face the fear in yourself. You faced the fear directly, right? You went to, here's somebody who's got knives all over the place, who we're going to simulate knife fights, stuff like that, I assume, right?
Yeah.
And you practiced. You did it.
Yeah.
You faced it. And that made a transformation inside you. That transformed. You're no longer running from something or feeling like you were being pursued by it. But you had your own power.
All right.
So there's that, and then beyond that is like I think there was like 1 or 2 healing dreams. Was that?
There's the main one where I walked to that house.
Yes.
So it started off where I'm leaving this one house where I was living in with all these other people. It was like a house where people were working on themselves. It was like, it was weird. Anyways, I'm glad I wrote about it in detail. I don't remember now. Anyways, but when I left the house, right, something told me I had this gift and I had to go to this house down the street. And as I walked out, there was this big black truck on the driveway. And these guys were trying to steal stuff off the tires and off the car. And I walked up to them, and I was able, and it was the first time in the dreams in like, whatever, 1.5 2 years going into this, from the time of the attack, where I was able to do something. And I told these guys, I'm like, you got 2 options. You know, I call the cops, or you pick up your stuff and you go and don't come back. And they picked up their stuff and went. Right.
That is such a beautiful dream.
No cops involved even in dreams. That's a good thing. I mean,
so that's the clear transformation dream.
Yeah.
That's clear transformation.
Yeah, so that's kind of like, so is that working into the...
Yeah, so the goal here, we can think of the task here, the task shifts to containment, it's separation, and it's containment of the emotion. And we have to do that so we know what it is and work with it. If we don't know what something is, it's pretty hard to work with it. Then the next phase is where it becomes symbolic and things become more harmonious, in the sense where we're not, we're transformed and we're not being pursued. And successful entry into this phase means that we have essentially integrated the opposites from the enantiodromia. We've integrated both. So in this one, we have integrated self and emotion, right? We've come to terms with it. But in order to do it, we had to separate out first. And then we can begin to work with it and metabolize it, digest it, transform it. But in the process of doing that, that's transformation. And then that's what this symbolic phase is. It's the phase of we've transformed, and typically we will find symbols which will hold both poles of things. So when we separate from self and affect, or self and emotion, then the next phase is to differentiate, well, what emotions are in there, and then split each of those into separates. And then eventually we find a common ground where we bring those back together again. In Jungian terms, a symbol, what he says is a symbol, is something which will hold both poles, both opposite poles at the same time. It's a harmonious holding of the poles. So for this one...
harmonious holding of the poles.
Yeah, do you like
Sitting
that?
In, yeah, I love it. Patent that. And put a copyright on it. Because, foundation step 3 of my book and in the MBSR curriculum is like learning to be with the unpleasant, and then recognizing when there's unpleasant, there's moments of pleasant.
There you go.
And there's both.
There
and
you got
we're
it.
able to be with both.
Yes.
Or at least
that's it. That's
have
what
this emotional holding space for for it.
Holding space for it. Exactly right. So that's the harmonious holding of the poles. And we can often determine symbols of stuff like that. I bet if we go back to your dream, we can figure out what those symbols are. That next dream where you go to the house where the woman meets you at the door.
It's still the same dream.
Oh, it is.
I'm leaving. So this is all like
okay.
juiced. I'll have to see if there was another dream in there. I don't remember how many I wrote, but yeah. So after I caught the guys, right, then I was walking towards this place. Told me I had to go. I had a meeting or whatever it was. And then friends of mine from the house were telling me, hey, come on, we're going downtown to hang out and have fun. And I was like, instead of being pulled away, I stayed on the course. And then that's when I kept walking, and I was carrying like this brown paper bag with like this stone in it and a gift of some sort. And as I was walking, I came to that big, beautiful field, and I wanted to go into it, but the path went left. And as much as I was trying to get pulled off the path again, I decided, no, I got to stay on track. And then so that's when I turned left and followed the path, and I came out to the house on the cliff over the ocean, and the woman opened up the door.
A lot of times in dreams, left is unconscious and right is conscious.
Mm-hmm.
So left, you went deeper in.
Oh.
Would be a good way. The right, or maybe it's the right side path was like, I just want to have fun, but the other is some sort of,
Interesting.
It's like that part of the dream was just very spiritual.
Yeah.
Did you think?
Yeah, it was, so when I rang the doorbell, she opened up the door, the woman, and there was some chanting, like some hymns or just some chanting in the background, and it felt very healing.
I bet. It had to feel so good.
Yeah, it was like everything, bright lights. And then after that, she said, we've been waiting for you. Right?
Which
so
is
it was
such
like,
a great thing to hear.
like I was there, but they were like, we're ready for you. Like the door is right there.
They were there for you.
Yeah, they knew I was coming.
Yeah,
right?
they knew you were
like,
coming.
And then after I went in, then that's when I ended up across this table from this man with the white hair.
Okay.
And older man, and he asked me, we know who you are, but tell me your story. And that was the first time, and it was so weird because it was in a dream where they knew my story, but they wanted me to retell it. And so I took that as a way of like, okay, I can talk about the trauma, but now we switch the narrative into this one of strength and how I got through it and how we can get through things, right?
Have you had any other dreams, any more dreams where those people are in the dreams?
No. It was that one.
This sounds very much like some of these Taoist stories that I would hear, where somebody meets like one of these Taoist practitioners who's hundreds of years old. They go back in the mountains and they see somebody and then later realize, oh, I just met one of those guys and I didn't even know it. Like that kind of a thing. I'll have to give you, I got some books, so I'll have to give you that. And you can look at it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So what was I going to say? So you haven't met those people again?
No. But you know, it was like when I met the older guy, it felt like we were in this cafeteria room too.
Oh, really?
Not so much in this house, or it was like this house or wherever I was had like an elementary school cafeteria kind of thing.
Did they say
like
who they
tables.
were?
No, I don't remember. No. I
Were
just
there
knew
other-
I was going there and they were waiting for me.
That is such
and they knew who I was.
That is just such a welcoming, such a great feeling. Like it's for you.
Yeah, and so one of the things with the practices that I've been doing on myself, it allowed me, just like I did with the nightmares, where I felt paralyzed and frozen, and when I woke up, I'm like, holy shit, did that really happen? Kind of thing, and I would sit with all that bad energy, I guess. And this one, when I woke up, I laid in bed with my eyes open for like another 15, 20 minutes before I got out, because internally I felt so good.
So
is that
so great.
Part of...
Oh, that's kind of like going beyond the symbolic phase and into like spiritual phase. I mean, that's transcendence. That's what that dream, to me, that's what that dream speaks of. It's like transcendence. It's like you've gone to another level. And I would add, what it means when I hear that is it means that you are successful in transforming your trauma. If we think about all of this stuff that happens to us as somehow being either determined or needed or by design somehow, that successful usage of these challenges results in our growth. That what happened to you was a very big one, and that dream is like telling you did what you needed to do with that. You're doing what you needed to do with that. You've learned the stuff you needed to learn in that. That's the transcendence. And I think that's the big lesson in all of this, is that if we go through our trauma with right mind, we will become more than what we were. The tendency is we want to go back to who we were, but that's not ever going to happen, because we're different than what we were. We've seen too much. We know too much. You can't go back. So one's only task is you have to go forward. And on that part of the journey, well, we can choose. What I recently see a saying is like, if you choose, what is it? It was like, if you choose not to find the joy with the snow, you'll still have the same amount of snow, but without the joy. So in other words, it's up to you to choose what to do with what has happened. Well, up to us, what to do with what's happened to us. Can we make something good out of it and transform ourselves into being something more than what we were? Or do we just keep slogging through? Right? So that's what you've done.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
Yeah.
That's the cool part.
Yeah.
You figured out what to do.
Yeah.
How'd you have the idea to write the book? That's what I want to know.
We'll pause right here.
Okay.
Or, yeah.
Are we still running?